I like your pants, man.
Really?
Yeah.
I think they're YD.
Are they chinos?
I think so. I don't like the blue jeans look. Do you ever go for the blue jeans look?
I do. I've got navy. I wear navy pants a lot to work.
Okay.
But it's a bit strange seeing like such nice pants with the Tommy Hilfiger shirt. I mean, it's a good look.
You don't like the Tommy Hilfiger shirt?
I like the shirt, but I don't know if I would wear that shirt with those pants.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it looks good. I mean, you pull it off. I don't think I could pull it off because you're tall and slender.
Yeah.
I'm not as tall and slender as you.
Okay.
Also notice your hair's grown out a lot.
I like it, eh?
Yeah, it looks good.
The hair's grown out, the little black bits.
Yeah, you got the regrowth going.
Yeah. Your hair's long now.
I made a pact to myself. I'm not going to cut my hair for the rest of the year. Well, not the top of my hair anyway.
Why?
So I'll keep the sides clean. I just want to see how long I can get it. I always get to it gets to like 6 months and it's looking good. It's looking long. And then I just cut it. And this time I want to see how long I can actually get it. You know what, mate? I'm 38 years old, right? I'm not going to have my hair forever. So I may as well do something with it, right?
Yeah. Like, what style are you going to go for? Are you going to pull it back?
Well, now I can keep it like this for at least, I would say, another 3 months.
Yeah.
Once it gets longer, I might have to slick it back.
Oh, yeah?
Maybe even like tie it up in a little ponytail. I don't know.
Wow. Because when I worked at your school back in the day, the kids would say I had a ratty because I had you know what a
You had
calic?
a ratty?
Yeah, no, but it looked like there was a ratty.
Yeah.
Because my hair has a calic at the back where it just sticks up.
So you got a cowlick. I had a cowlick up here.
Oh, yeah?
And that was the most annoying thing. Over time, it's kind of faded away, but I had a cowlick. And there were only certain styles that I could do.
Yeah.
It's
And
so annoying.
Apparently, like male and female barbers cut hair different. So apparently, female barbers might leave more at the back. So the kids will be, "Sir, you got a ratty." I'm like, "No, I don't. No, I don't."
Oh, look, if you ever got already, I probably won't talk to you. Probably won't podcast anymore.
Yeah.
It is another episode, as you would know, and it's one that I think a lot of teachers would want to tune in on. And I think a lot of parents and caregivers would want to tune in on because this episode, I am going to focus on not only managing difficult parents, but I guess some stories that maybe we've gone through, some incidents that we've gone through with difficult parents, because I touched on this on one of the podcasts that I did previously, where I said that one of the main reasons a lot of teachers are leaving the profession is because the parents aren't giving them, I guess, an opportunity to be a good teacher, almost like the parents dictating what goes on in the school.
Yeah, lots of pressure on the teachers. The teachers don't feel they have a voice almost. They feel like they're under the pump, but from the executives, from the parent pressures, and it does get really, really tricky for teachers.
I could see that point of view, and I think it's almost like, you know, when you watch a sport and you see a video on Instagram, right? And then there's a comments all saying how things should be done, and they're just almost like couch commentators.
Yeah.
They're not actually athletes themselves. They've never played the sport, but all of a sudden they're experts in the field of teaching.
Yeah.
It's no different to that. It's like, well, if you're not a teacher, if you've not taught in a classroom, you don't really have a right to tell us what we should be doing. Now, I understand certain situations, certain students have different needs, and that's fair enough. But I don't think I don't think any parent has any right to tell a teacher what they should be doing in a classroom.
I do like that analogy because I used to watch a lot of soccer, and, you know, the crowd, the fans would be just yelling and screaming at the coach. The coach is almost like the teacher, and then the fans are almost like the parents. And then perhaps the team winning or losing is perhaps the child's progress, whether it's their behavior or academics. So it's interesting.
But it's frustrating because parents surely would know that there's a teacher shortage, right? Parents would know their child would come home, oh, my teacher was absent again, or my teacher was absent again, or my teacher left, I have a new teacher. I know my child had a couple of teachers in her kindergarten year. So you know there's a teacher shortage. You know that schools are struggling to find teachers, yet what are parents actually doing to make it easier for teachers? Because from what I've been hearing, I haven't seen much of it, but from what I've been told, a lot of the times parents are the driving force as to why teachers are leaving the profession. And it's honestly, like, I cannot tell you the amount of messages I do receive saying that I left teaching because I couldn't deal with the parents anymore. And that's sad.
But you mentioned that you don't go through them as much.
I don't. And that's what we're going to talk about,
Yeah.
I guess, as the episode progresses, in how to manage the more difficult, the more challenging parents. But it's still an epidemic. It is still happening. And you know what's sad? We shouldn't have to talk about how to manage difficult parents. That shouldn't even be a topic of conversation. Parents should just trust that the teachers know what they're doing and just allow the teachers or the school to go through their processes to make sure that the child's getting the best possible education. It shouldn't be a topic of conversation, but unfortunately it is. And that's what we're here to discuss today.
I think I'm in the same boat as you in terms of I haven't had really many negative interactions at all with parents. But we have discussed one in particular that I've had in the past that in the moment when it happened, I was completely in shock. I didn't know how to comprehend the situation. I just went all crazy. But that was actually one of the best experiences for me in my teaching career because of the learning experience that I had.
I do remember that. For those who aren't aware, there was an instance. Obviously, we're not going to mention any names. We're not even going to say which year this was. But I've known Kevin for 6 or so years now. There was an instance that you had with a particular parent, and it was quite a confronting incident. Do you want to talk a little bit about sort of what happened and I guess the aftermath, like what you did? What you learned from that situation?
So I'll try and give a full context. So I did my whole usual routine, right? I called the parent at the start of the year with that parent to really build a relationship. And I think I got comfortable in that. I think I have that rapport now. So I can, communicate, let's say if their child's misbehaving in the classroom, I can have that conversation with them. And I think maybe perhaps I got too comfortable because there were a few instances at school, let's say, where the child did misbehave and I had to inform the parent. And that wasn't a pleasant start for the parent in terms of receiving that news. And so there was a meeting called between the parent and myself and my coordinator at the time. And the conversation quickly escalated to just me getting yelled at and being accused of, not differentiating perhaps or not meeting their needs. And it was just a very unpleasant conversation. I was basically getting yelled at for about 20 minutes.
I'll get back to that. So you said one word, and a lot of teachers use this word, and it's sad, is accused. So a lot of the times teachers are being accused from parents and caregivers that perhaps the teacher isn't doing what they should be doing in the classroom. But I can tell you now, every school across the world, there are always going to be teachers that might not put in as much effort as other teachers. You're always going to have that. But I would say, I'm going to go and say 98, maybe 99% of the teachers that I've worked with, certainly, they go above and beyond. And I'm not going to tolerate any parent saying that teachers aren't doing what they should be doing. That frustrates me. So when you said the word accuse, that's a trigger word. Like, you can't accuse a teacher without full evidence. If you're listening to just your child, I mean, come on, there's going to be an issue there.
And like that parent actually brought a A4 piece of paper, lined paper, and wrote dot points of everything that she's believing that I'm not doing. And I mean, I'll mention what the mistakes
was the handwriting at least nice?
The handwriting was nice, but in that scenario, again, this was a mistake. I'll mention why it's a mistake later, but the mistake was it became me and the coordinator trying to justify that, no, we are doing these things.
Okay, good.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I can see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
I presume you're going to come back and say you later learned that you shouldn't be justifying.
No. And I think going in, I was almost too comfortable. I was like, I was the teacher that went up to other teachers. Oh, I've never had a negative interaction with a parent. So this was almost a wake up call for me in, taking lessons from it. Instead of, there were a period of time, let's say 1 or 2 weeks, 3 weeks, where I was blaming the parent. Look, what's wrong with this parent? Why would they do that? But then having conversations with you, further reflection, I realized that perhaps my mindset was wrong. I went into that meeting trying to prove my point, where I think I should have focused more on building and maintaining positive relationship. Or if the relationship has been damaged, it's about repairing and restoring that relationship. So I think I went into that meeting with a wrong mindset and misinterpreting perhaps the parents' intentions, and that's why it went wrong.
And that goes down to perspective. And I've mentioned, I've said it so many times through social media, perspective is everything. Parents, we understand that you want what's best for your child. I'm a parent myself. I've got 3 children. We understand that. But under no circumstances is it ever okay to accuse a teacher of not doing what they should be doing, because that's not conducive to anything positive, right? Nothing positive is going to come out of that instance. And that's what happened in your situation, where you perhaps upon reflection, you realize, okay, maybe I didn't take into the perspective of what the parent was feeling or how the parent was feeling. And so that would have almost snowballed into more negativity. And so what I'm trying to get at here is, and this is directed to parents and teachers, is it is a two-way street. But what's happening and very concerning is a lot of parents, it seems as though for them, based on what they believe, it's a one-way street. And it's, no, you are the teacher, you must do this. No, that is not the case. You as a parent have to understand that that teachers as well, we're humans, that we are working incredibly hard to provide not just what your child needs, but what 25, 26, 30 other children need. So this whole idea of perspective which I've mentioned. So understanding it from the perspective of a parent, it has to go both ways. It cannot just be me as a teacher saying, I understand it from your perspective. You as a parent have to say, you know what? I understand it from your perspective as a teacher. I understand how you're feeling and what you're trying to do. And once that line, because at the moment that line's quite blurred, once we've almost driven a line in between the two that we both understand each other's perspective, that's the only way you can ever do what's truly best for the child. But what I believe the disconnect, where it's coming from, is the teachers are only looking at it from the perspective of a parent, and teachers don't feel that parents are looking at it from the perspective of a teacher. Not every parent. Okay, I've been blessed. I've worked with some incredible parents. So I've been blessed. And in the last 5 years, I could probably count on one hand how many negative interactions I've had with any parents or caregivers. But that's because I do everything I possibly can to make sure that not only do they know that I see it from their perspective, but I want them to know that you need to see it from my perspective as well as a teacher.
Interesting.
And if they're not going to be okay with that, then obviously nothing's going to improve. And if you truly wanted what's best for your child, if any parent out there truly wants what's best for their child, you will take into the consideration the perspective of a teacher, what they're going through, to make sure your child is receiving adequate support and being delivered the best possible lessons and given a quality education.
Wow.
Both ways. Perspective has to go both ways, right?
I've never thought about that way. Ever since that incident, I was more just focused on what I can control. I never thought of it in that manner where it's about getting the parent to also see the teacher's perspective, which is very interesting. Yeah, because after that incident, I've realized that, we label them as difficult parents, but really they're just parents that want what's best for their child.
Right.
They're anxious. They want what's best for their child. And I think developing that empathy as a teacher really helped with all my future interactions with parents.
I became a much better teacher and I became a much better communicator with parents when I became a parent myself. I became much better because I started to understand, I kind of see why parents can feel almost that sense of frustration. I see it.
Yeah.
But in no way, shape or form is it an excuse for a parent not to look at it from the perspective of a teacher. The issue again, and I'll say over and over, is right now at the moment, all over media, teachers are to blame. I'm going to give you an example, and this really irritated me. I actually made a video about this, decided not to post it. I saw on Instagram a parent recording a video, her child in the back seat. I'll show you this video off camera later. Her child in the back seat and the mum sitting at the front. The song at the back was playing something like, I'm proud of you, with the caption, my child got bullied and hit the student. And she gave him almost like a fist pump, right? I understand it from that perspective. Like if my child's getting bullied, I don't want my child to get bullied, so I'm going to allow my child to defend themselves. But what really irritated me from that were the comments. I scrolled through the comments and I cannot tell you how many comments I read saying that schools are doing nothing. Teachers do nothing about bullying. They have no control. They're allowing the children to get away with bullying. This is my point. We are understanding it from your perspective because me as a teacher, I've said, I understand it. Like, your child got hit. I understand why you as a parent would ask your child to defend themselves. But don't then turn around and not look at it from the perspective of a teacher and say, schools are doing nothing. The amount of comments were ridiculous because this video went viral. It had several 100,000 views and there were hundreds and hundreds of comments. The amount of comments blaming teachers for this was absolutely ridiculous. And that's why I think in terms of managing difficult parents, you cannot manage a difficult parent if they're too stubborn in their ways and not actually looking at it from the perspective of a teacher. That will move into bullying because bullying is another big issue. And that's where a lot of the issues with parents come into play. Any parent that comes in, there are certain situations where my child's not learning, but more often than not, if a parent comes and makes a complaint, it's because their child is being bullied.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. And building onto that idea, filming that video is almost going against the school values.
It is going against the school values.
And I think, I'm not a parent myself, but I do have a nephew. And I always emphasize to my nephew's mother, my sister, to, never be that parent that talks bad about the teacher in front of the child, or never be that parent that goes against the school values or the school culture. This
person has gone onto social media, posted a video that went viral for several hundreds of thousands of people to watch, almost allowing these comments, bashing the schools, not that particular school, but bashing schools in general, saying that teachers are doing nothing. Man, I can't even tell you how hard I work or the amount of effort I put into my class to prevent bullying. Now, I can't speak for every teacher. Now, granted, I'm very lucky in that my approach works. There's very rarely any bullying in my class. And if there is bullying, I stamp it out straight away. But what do you want teachers to do? Do you want teachers to go out and say, you know what, if a child hits you, you punch them right back? My issue in that is what can teachers do? What more can we do?
We hear that all the time, right? Sir, my dad tells me to just hit back if someone hits me. We hear
fair,
that all the time.
And you know what? Fair enough. But you go out onto the street right now, someone walking past you punches you in the face, you punch them back. Who's going to face the consequences? Both of you.
Yeah.
So I understand it. Like, I do get it. If my child was getting bullied, my first concern is my child okay? That would be number one. Are you okay? How are you feeling? So this is how I would approach it. How are you feeling? What could you do in the future to ensure it doesn't happen again without the use of violence? Without the use of violence. So communicate with the teacher, maybe stay closer to a teacher, maybe develop a group of friends so he's not by himself or she's not by herself. But I won't tell them just go punch him straight in the face.
Absolutely. And people that advocate for violence do not understand how dangerous and terrifying true violence is.
Can you imagine if, and this is to all parents listening out there, if you wanted, based on the comments I read, what parents want is for the child that hits back not to get into trouble. Now, can you imagine we have a school environment where every single child that gets hit or is bullied physically, they are allowed to retaliate? Can you imagine recess and lunch where any child, anything is said to them that they're not happy with, they're allowed to now retaliate, and imagine the teachers allow that. What would happen?
Exactly. It would just descend into absolute chaos.
It would be absolute chaos. So point being is when you use social media, parents in particular, and when you're bashing a school, when you're constantly blaming teachers and schools, what precedent is it setting for not just your audience, so those who are watching, but for your child who's sitting in the back seat and you're fist bumping him? Yeah, you know what? You're happy now, but let's wait 10, 15 years if that happens. And when he gets caught in by the police, no, seriously, when he gets caught in by the police, let's see you fist bump him through the prison, through the cell gate. Honestly, because that's what will happen. That's reality. You have to understand reality.
No, it is. And again, as teachers, we're trying to set them up for the real world. You may be at home teaching them to, hit back and things like that.
You really need to blow your nose.
Yeah, I know.
You're struggling. So I'll talk a little bit more while you do that. But exactly what you said. I'm a teacher. I'm not concerned about martial arts. I mean, I'm not a martial arts teacher, right? I'm not going to teach the child. My concern is raising them to be functional members of society. It's just funny because he's just gone off camera to blow his nose. But that's what we should be doing. That's our goal.
And, I do a bit of kickboxing myself. I had an amateur license at one point. The point I was making before is people that advocate for violence don't understand just how bad true violence is. Like, people don't understand that one hit, even a child's hit, could just paralyze someone for life.
Exactly.
And so for people to just advocate for that, even at home, one of my foster parents actually would say to me, if someone hits you, hit them back. I never did it. But I just always thought that doesn't make sense to me. You can kill somebody with a hit, no matter how old you are.
Back to the comments on that. So the argument was teachers and schools aren't doing enough. And there were a few comments that said, so these were parents obviously commenting, is why is the child who got bullied, as soon as they retaliate, why is that child getting in trouble as well? Well, honey, I'd hate to tell you this, but in the real world, if you go out and hit someone, regardless of if it's self-defense, you are getting in trouble. Okay, the police will get involved. So you want to fist bump him in the back of the car, you better be prepared to fist bump him in between the cell gates of a prison, because that's where our child is going to head if they live life under the impression that it is okay to strike someone just because you were bullied or whatever. You can defend yourself, but I don't have to strike to defend myself. I don't have to strike.
And the best way to stop bullying is simply walking away.
100%.
If I'm walking down the street, and I teach this to my Gentlemen's Guild. So for those listeners that maybe don't know about the program, the Gentlemen's Guild is where we bring in a bunch of boys who perhaps have behavioral complexities and difficulties. And I teach it to them. I say to them, look, Mr. Peng used to do, fighting, kickboxing, whatever it is, right? If another person is walking on the street and then bump me on the shoulder, you know what I'm going to say?
Walk away.
You know what I'm going to say? No problem, mate, and just walk off.
Yes, exactly. And the reason we're talking about bullying now is because 90% of negative interactions with parents that I've witnessed are because of bullying, because their child is getting bullied. And so they're blaming it on the teachers and the schools. And there are obviously other circumstances. Back to looking at perspective. If you want us as teachers to look at it from the perspective of your child, you need to look at it from the perspective of a teacher as well. And you need to get on board. And if you're not happy with that, then you need to find a new school. And that's it. That's reality.
Yeah.
Okay. There are rules. We live in Australia, in my opinion, the greatest country in the world.
Yeah.
Honestly, the greatest, and I've taught my students this, the greatest country in the world. There are certain rules, there are certain laws that apply that you have to follow. You might not like them. There are certainly rules that I don't like. 50 zone in a zone where I think I should be driving 70, 80, but I abide by those rules because I'm a citizen, I'm a respectful citizen, and I'm courteous towards other people. You cannot, under any circumstances, promote any sort of physical violence. Not just physical violence, online, anything, verbal abuse, all that sort of stuff. As soon as you as a parent allowing your child to retaliate physically in a way that could genuinely hurt another student, you are setting your child up for failure. That's all you are doing. You are not doing your child a service. You may think you are because, the bully will stop. Yeah, if someone's bullying me and I strike that person and I hurt that person, that person's not going to bully me again. But I've automatically almost promoted this idea that it's okay to hit someone, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm setting myself up for failure. So when I get older, and exactly with your sort of situation there where you walk down the street and someone bumps me, I might take it, well, this person, how dare you bump me? I'm going to punch this person. And next 24 hours later, I'm sitting down in a jail cell.
And it's a never-ending loop, right? You see with wars, one country attacks another goes on and attacks back, and it never stops. It only stops if people learn to forgive. It only stops if people learn to step back through communication.
Communication. Yeah. Communication is key. And like I said, from the perspective of a parent, I can certainly understand it's hard to tell your child that if they get hit to both walk away and tell the teacher, but that is within the best interests of not just your child, but everyone else in that school environment. And my question to you, if you're listening, what else do you want us to do? I mean, what more can we do? Oh yeah, imagine standing in front of the class and you're teaching PDHP and you say, guys, if a child hits you, it's okay to hit you back.
Yeah, it's so dumb.
To hit that child back. Imagine recess and lunch.
Yeah.
Imagine the amount of injuries that would be caused. And God forbid, hospitalization because children now think it's okay if someone bullies me, I'm going to hit back. We are raising a society. We are genuinely raising a society. Our society there should be no violence.
No.
Absolutely none.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, I'm passionate about it because I've seen what you go through, or the steps that you take to prevent bullying, the step that schools take to prevent bullying. My God, there are so many initiatives, so many programs that are put into place to teach our children not to bully. But bullying starts at home. If a child is bullying someone, more than likely, 99%, I am 99% sure that child is experiencing some form of physical or verbal abuse at home. Because that child is a product of their environment, right?
Yeah, and they're projecting perhaps what they're lacking or their insecurities onto other children. That's where bullying starts. And it just affects everyone around them. And it becomes the people that are hurting hurt. So that's kind of like the quote.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So any parent out there, if you have an issue with how with your child getting bullied, perhaps speak to the parents of the bully, because that's certainly where they're learning these behaviors.
Interesting.
And as a school, we have to be political. We have to be diplomatic. That's it. We're not catering to one student. We've got schools of 600, 700, 800 students, and we're responsible for the safety and well-being of all those students. So how dare parents insinuate that schools and teachers are not doing enough to prevent bullying when the true cause of bullying begins at home by what the child is experiencing in that home environment, because I can guarantee you a teacher is not out there promoting bullying. So they're learning it somewhere else. They're learning it either through their friendship groups or at home.
And I know for a fact that if I hear my nephew being bullied, he's going to get a consequence from both his mum and me. Uncle.
You mean if you hear your nephew bullying someone?
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I last year, there was an incident with my daughter who, it wasn't physical bullying. She had singled out one of the students in her friendship group. I tell you now, when she got home, when I found out, iPad off. You go to your room.
Yeah.
No TV. You have your dinner, you sit down, you read. I think it was like 2 weeks worth of that. Very, very strict. How dare you bully another student? All that sort of stuff, right? I never ever want to see it. It wasn't severe bullying. It was literally just like, she was in year 1. So like, I get it. Like you're singling out a child, but it starts from now. I have to start teaching from now. It is not okay. So 2 weeks pass by. We catch up with the teacher and we get a bit of an update, or we ask for a bit of an update. How's my daughter been? Perfect. I didn't get the school to do anything. Me as a teacher, as a parent, my child did not stop bullying because the school did something about it. My child stopped bullying because me as a parent, I stepped in and I did something about it. And because of that, my child stopped bullying. Granted, it was a minimal sort of instance, but I stopped it then and there. And since then, 0 incidents, very, very minimal incidents. Teachers are very happy, right? But to insinuate that a teacher and a school is solely responsible to prevent bullying,
Absolutely not.
and that really annoys me.
So then my question to you would be this, right? We talked a lot about bullying. As a teacher, because at times we cannot control the parents. I've seen it before, common instances that I see within my own teaching career, not particularly with me, but across, the other teachers that I've worked with, is parent complaints about the tiniest little things, right? Maybe perhaps the seating plans, perhaps, who they're friends with. Why aren't you teaching my child this? My child's coming home saying this, and they're always taking the child's side, and they may be the type to perhaps complain over email, complain over phone calls. What would you do in that situation?
If that was happening directed towards me, that's a loaded question. So let's take it back a little bit. So give me one instance and we'll work our way towards that. So what's the first thing that the parent has complained about?
Let's just say they've gone home and they're not happy with how you're teaching in the classroom. Okay. Let's say that's.
I would ask. I'll be specific. Can you please give me specific examples of what your child isn't liking? And here's where I get frustrated, because I will take it. I will take on board that feedback.
Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. Good point. Yeah, I understand your child might not like that they're sitting on the floor for X amount of time. Maybe I can reduce that. So I would be working with the teacher, with the parent.
Yeah.
But my problem and my issue is you have to get them on board to work with you, and that comes to rapport. So obviously what you do at the beginning of a year, building that relationship, that rapport, but I would listen to them. Yeah. And I would have the child in the meeting. That's another thing. If you're managing a difficult parent, you have that child in the meeting with you, because you as a teacher and as a parent, you tell when that child's lying. Because what happens is the parents come in the meeting, the child's at home, and it's just you and the parent. No. Bring your child in. Let's make them accountable, because you can always tell when a child's lying. Now, if there's a genuine complaint that's being made from a parent to a teacher, have that child there and let the child speak.
And I like what you said about the rapport thing, because that wouldn't even happen in the first place, because you would have made sure to build that rapport and perhaps build a relationship with the parent prior to that.
I've had very respectful interactions over the last several years that parents have come up to me and said that I can remember a parent. It wasn't even a complaint. It was one of the nicest conversations I'd ever had, right? And the parent was saying to me, or said to me, that because my voice is quite deep, and I do raise my voice. I never scream, and that's one thing I'm against, but I do raise my voice. And this person's child wasn't taking to it really well. So I thought, okay. And I said to the parent, I go, I'll take that on board. I go, I'll be much more mindful of this.
Yeah.
So by allowing the parent to voice their concerns, the number one thing I would do in any situation when a parent has made a complaint is firstly listen.
Yeah.
Let them vent.
Yeah.
If they want to be rude, if they want to be disrespectful, for me personally, I don't care. So let them vent, offer up solutions. Don't just sit there and constantly go back and forth, because it's no different to bullying when both people are constantly bullying. It's a never-ending cycle. So you'd start off, you'd listen, you'd let them vent, you'd offer up solutions.
And I think the solution should be a conjoined, collaborative discussion of what the potential solutions could be, involving the parent. So what might work at home? Those are sorts of the questions that we could ask.
After you've offered up the solutions, you would reaffirm it with the child. So the child would be in the meeting. You would say, are you okay with this? Yep. Is this something that could work? And most importantly, and this is where a lot of teachers could probably shy away from, is the follow-up.
Yeah.
So you give it a week, you contact the parent, how's things going? Good. All right. So you go from 1 week, and then every maybe couple of weeks, you follow it up. But you're not just following it up with the parent, you're following it up with the child. You're making sure that the child's okay, because now you know that this was an issue. Give me a more extreme circumstance of a parent making a complaint.
Well, let me just build on to one point first, and then I'll give you maybe another scenario. I like that point that you made about let the parent vent, and I think that's really, really important. And that was the mistake that I made in that story that I told before, in that I actually stopped the meeting in the middle of the parent venting, because I've been taught at uni, and apparently it's standard protocol that if it gets too heated, that you're supposed to end the meeting.
I'm going to say a very unpopular opinion.
Yeah.
Very unpopular opinion. But I don't think if a parent comes in aggressively, the only time I would call off a meeting is when it becomes physical.
Yeah.
If they're raising their voice, if they start using profanities, I would stop it with if they start swearing. That's when I'd call it quits. But if they're coming in and they're raising their voice, how dare you talk to my child like this? I won't call it off. I'll be like, no, speak, vent. Because you got to get it, they have to get it off their chest. And if you're not giving them the opportunity to get it off their chest, nothing will resolve itself. So I'm glad that you did that reflection, because with your first the instance that you mentioned, you said that you initially stopped the meeting in the middle of that parent venting. Yeah. That is a big mistake. That is a mistake teachers make regularly.
And then the mistake also was I'm backing off and trying to defend myself.
Never play. No. So that's
during the venting. Like it was just not a smart move at all. I should have just let the parent vent, let her get it off the chest, because by the time parents actually let it out, they're fine. They calm.
I'm going to go and say 100% of the time. Now, again, I'm lucky. I have to admit, I've worked with some incredible parents, but I would say 100% of the time, any time the parent vented and got it off their chest, the conversation that followed after that was so productive, and everyone ended up leaving happy. I'm not going to say names, but I'm going to refer you back to a meeting that we had with a parent about a child from your class in 2023. This child who was quite attached to you.
Oh, yep.
Yep. And the father was in that meeting, and I remember the father getting quite really heated up. Yep. And I was there as your supervisor. Talk us through that. Tell me, I remember it. I want to see what your recollection of this. So for those who don't know, it got quite heated.
I think the father kind of was pacing up and down.
Yeah. You said this, and I remember after the meeting, you go, I can't believe he was trying to intimidate me.
Yeah.
So do you remember what he was doing to intimidate you?
No, I can't remember. Can you
staunching? So standing over you.
Okay.
Yep. In the chair. This is what you told me, and I found it funny because I did notice that he kept staring at you.
Yeah.
I remember eyes were just locked. So there was obviously a sense of intimidation there.
Yeah.
At no point did he get physical. Body language wise, you could tell he was almost asserting his authority.
But the difference was that parent wasn't actually accusing me of anything. He was genuinely frustrated for his child.
Exactly.
So
sorry to cut you off. Did you allow him to vent his frustration about the child? And what happened after that?
He almost apologized. Sorry for being so
He did apologize.
passionate.
He didn't almost. He apologized.
Yeah.
He shook your hand after that meeting, and he was actually apologizing, literally word for word almost. I'm so sorry for how I came across at the start of this meeting.
Yep.
Why? Because you allowed that parent to vent their frustration.
Yep.
Now, of course, I was there, and I was obviously watching for cues. You never wanted to get physical. And to be truthful, 99% of the time, parents don't get physical in interactions like this. Okay, so it's not fair to assume that they are doing that, because they're not doing that. I mean, I've certainly not seen it. Perhaps some have. I haven't. But the moment you allowed that parent to vent their frustration,
it makes a huge difference.
It made a huge difference.
I remember once there was a child who had a really great rapport with. I'm usually quite patient. I'm usually known as the more patient teacher. And one particular Friday afternoon was end of term 4, like very late in the term. I was very, very tired. And the child started kicking other kids, was like doing little spinning kicks on the floor, like little Street Fighter moves.
Was I?
No, you weren't there at that point. So
Street Fighter moves.
Yeah, it was like one of those Chun-Li moves. Anyway, so I went up to the kid, and instead of pulling him aside and speaking to him patiently and saying, hey, help him understand his behavior, I just started being sarcastic. I was really tired. I don't know what I was thinking.
Well, it's term 4.
Yeah, it was term 4. So I was like, is that what you're supposed to be doing? I was kind of talking to him like that. And the kid was like, what? What did I even do? I was like, so if I take you to your teacher now and get you to explain to her what you're doing, you'll be okay. Like, I was talking to him in that fashion. And he was shocked because I don't really talk to him ever like that. And so I kind of kept going a little bit. I was just feeling it. And he started bawling his eyes out, screaming at me. And all his friends were like going crazy. And I was like, okay, that was out of character for me. And the child's reacting poorly. It's a Friday afternoon. My number one concern is that child. However, he's going home. And my number one priority is I don't want him to go home upset.
Yeah.
Which he has, because it was a Friday afternoon. I'm going to take the initiative to call the parent and actually apologize for my behavior. Now, I may not have done anything perhaps unprofessional out of the code of conduct, but I actually called. And the first thing that I noticed was the parent was kind of on the attack already, or very kind of aggressive, not on the attack, but quite aggressive. And I know that the child has told the parent the story. So instead of me trying to justify and prove myself, which was the mistake I made in the past, I let the parent vent. The parent went, you teach in Gentlemen's Guild that, students have to be patient, blah, 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 and all this. And yet, blah, blah. It was just going off. And then afterwards, complete calmness. We had a great conversation. I actually apologized. I said, look, that was out of character for me. And it was a fantastic conversation. The child came back the next week. We shook hands, we made up, and it was a fantastic conversation.
That's a good story. I like that. There's a commonality, I guess, between everything we've said as Kevin goes to throw another tissue in the bin. A commonality is allowing the parent to vent their frustration. And that to me is what I think somewhere along the line, I think teachers are being brought up to take zero criticism or absolutely no form of confrontation by parents. And I'll say this, I understand it can never be physical. The language use must always be appropriate. But if a parent is sitting in front of me and saying, I'm fed up with my son coming home, always complaining about this and that, why would I even, I'm going to allow that parent to vent the frustration. No different to me as a parent going to my child's school being frustrated about something. I'd like to think that the teacher would allow me to speak. I would like to think that.
Yep.
That's how you sort of, I guess, diffuse those situations is allowing I'll go back to what I said. The first thing you hear them out, you let them vent. Second thing, you offer solutions. Don't combat, don't disagree. A big mistake is teachers disagree. Just let the parents speak. Offer solutions. Check with the child to make sure that those solutions are in fact something that they're happy with. Follow up. Follow up after a week. Call that parent. How's things going? Have you noticed a change at home? Is your child happier at home? 2 weeks later, another follow up. And what I would do, maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks later, call that parent in for another meeting, like a face-to-face meeting with the child. Let's discuss, how have things been going? Is everything okay? No, my child is now saying this is it. Okay, let's do another solution. So you just follow that process. That's how I manage difficult or more challenging parents. That's what I would do.
And you're not going in there with the mindset of, I'm trying to prove my point.
No, you're not.
Actually focusing on maintaining positive relationships, restore relationships if there's any relationship that's broken, and obviously trying to address the issue.
Because we often speak, and it's true, like teachers cop a lot from parents. There's no doubt about that. I'm not doubting that whatsoever. But I do think at some point we've kind of blurred that line in we're not allowing any parent, to vent any form of frustration. So by not allowing them to do that, the situation obviously escalates. It gets worse and worse. Allowing them to go through that process I mentioned, 99% of the time that will work.
And that goes back to my point that I always make, which is at the start of the year, build that relationship so they can communicate with you. And more than likely, reaching out at the start of the year to every single parent will actually diffuse and reduce the amount of times that they're frustrated.
But I don't want to let it get twisted. This by no means parents can go out and start yelling because you should always be composed, right?
Yep.
But what I am saying, in the off chance that this does happen, because it does happen, it doesn't happen that often.
No.
Okay, we're not talking like this happens every day. This happens maybe once or twice a year, or for me or for people that I've worked with. When it does happen, this is the process you take. In between that, you should be, as a teacher, constantly just checking in with the parents. If you see them picking up their children, conversing with them, not just about school, but just how's your day been? What are your plans for the weekend? So you as a teacher, you're constantly doing things to keep that relationship going so that when it does happen, when there is any sort of incident, you're minimizing the effects as much as you can.
And bring it always back to the child, right? It's not personal for the teacher. I see a lot of teachers take things personal. It's like, no, it's not personal. They just want what's best for their child.
Yeah,
and once you're seeing it from that perspective, things will get a lot easier for both the parent and the teacher if teachers stop taking it personally 100%.
As well. Because, mate, you hit the nail on the head there. Some teachers, unfortunately, they do take it personal. It's no different to if a child's. I will never forget this, mate. This is back in 2014. So we're talking 12 years ago. I will never forget this. A child came up to me and said to me, "So you have the most boring class." This was like 2 weeks into the school year. "So this class is so boring. It's the most boring class I've ever been in." Mate, I could have turned around and say, "How dare you? How dare you say that? And but what I did was I took the child and go, like, can you actually tell me, like, what is it about this class that's boring? He goes, so we're sitting on the floor for too long. We're not doing enough activities where we're working with other children. You know what I did? I took that feedback on board. I flipped the narrative and I started making them work, I guess, a bit more in groups, less time on the floor. That child, from the time I was at that school, almost every single year, once, because this was year 6, once he went off to high school, came back every single year just to say hi. And it's no different with parents.
No different. Taking on board feedback.
Take on board feedback. As a teacher, you have to have thick skin. You cannot teach if you do not have thick skin. I'm sorry, but you must have some. We teach our students to be resilient, but we as teachers must also be resilient. And part of being resilient is allowing the parents the opportunity to vent their frustrations. Let them give feedback, whether we like it or not. Allow them that opportunity. From there, offer up solutions, and after that, follow through and follow up with the parents to make sure that the child has been looked after in the way they wanted to. But you cannot teach, and you cannot teach if you have thin skin. You've got to have thick skin, not just with parents, but with teachers, with students, students and other staff members.
And even if the teacher feels perhaps the parent is being unreasonable, it is still, in my opinion, up to the teacher to read between the lines, to still pick out what perhaps led to this situation in the first place, what led to this heated interaction. Still try and pinpoint things that the teacher themselves can change so that perhaps something like this doesn't happen ever again.
Exactly right. And that's what it comes down to. But the thing, because I'm not going to, I do want to go back to the biggest issue, or the main reason why parents come in, I guess, could be around bullying. So you let the parent talk about what the child is experiencing through bullying. You offer up solutions, you follow through and you check in, but it has to go both ways. You cannot expect only a school and teachers to prevent bullying. There has to be continuity or some sort of collaboration between parents and teachers. And in terms of bullying itself, if you as a parent know that your child is bullying someone, you need to act on it straight away. Do not let the little things slide, because that little thing in year 1 will become a lot more major in year 6 and far more major when they enter high school. You as a parent, you are responsible for whether or not your child bullies at school. It is not that it shouldn't be the school's and the teacher's responsibility to teach them not to bully. It should be your responsibility as a parent and caregiver that your child does not bully other people.
Well said. Very, very well said.
I have to admit, I am very passionate about that, because I've seen far too often teachers break down and cry because they genuinely don't know what else they can do as a teacher to prevent bullying. But again, it all comes down to the home environment, because it's not I'm going to say it, it's not systemic. No school in the world is promoting bullying. No school in the world isn't bending over backwards to make sure bullying doesn't occur. So it cannot be systemic. It's environmental. It's happening at home, and therefore bullying starts at home, and you as a parent have to ensure it does not happen again.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for listening into episode 3. We hope you enjoyed this one. Looking forward to our next episode.